What is good, everybody? Welcome back to another episode brought to you by the League FFB. Today, we're going to be going through potential rookie wide receiver landing spots in the NFL draft. I'm going to go through and rank every single team in the NFL, tell you guys how I would feel if a rookie wide receiver was drafted to that landing spot, and give you some reasons why I think it would be either good or bad for a potential rookie wide receiver. Now, this is a continuation of our video that we did on Monday. We did the running back position on Monday, so if you haven't checked that out, make sure you go check that out after this video. Also, make sure you guys are subscribed, that way you don't miss any more videos in the future. But without wasting too much time, let's hop right into today's video and let's talk wide receiver landing spots. Alright, so as you can see, I got the tier maker pulled up on the screen. It's the same thing as the last time. We have the elite tier at the very top. There in the middle is your average landing spot, neither good nor bad, no strong opinions on that one. And then obviously at the very bottom is trash. I would not feel good about a rookie wide receiver going here because there's not going to be a lot of opportunities for fantasy football points for them as a rookie. Now let's just start it off here with the San Francisco 49ers. For me, I'm going to put them in the bad category. Now obviously their depth chart right now consists of guys like Brandon Ayuk, Ricky Pearsall, Marcus Robinson, Juwan Jennings. These are all established wide receivers, and even though Brandon Ayuk is probably going to need some time to get back to 100%, I think right now rookie wide receiver going into this destination doesn't necessarily make a ton of sense. They got enough depth on the roster already, so I just don't think it's going to be a great landing spot for a rookie. Going to the next team, we have the Chicago Bears. I'm going to be putting them in the average tier. The Bears depth chart: DJ Moore, Rome Odunze. Outside of those two guys, there's really not much left. Keenan Allen obviously hit free agency. I don't know where he's going to end up landing. Maybe he just goes back to Chicago. I don't know if that's going to actually happen, but at the end of the day, I think this is a team that's going to use two wide receivers, similar to how the Detroit Lions used Amon-Ra St. Brown and Jameson Williams. And I don't think there's going to be a lot of opportunities for a rookie, even though that wide receiver 3 role is pretty wide open right now in Chicago. Let's move on to the Cincinnati Bengals. I'm also going to be putting them in the bad category. Their depth chart of Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Andre Yoshavash, obviously Jermaine Burton and some of these other guys there as well. There's not a lot to go around. They just locked up Jamar Chase and T. Higgins for a long time with 2 major contracts there in Cincinnati. There's not much more left to be said. There's not really a lot of opportunities for a rookie to come in and get some targets here in Cincinnati, but that does take us to the Buffalo Bills, who I am going to put in the elite category. Now, when you look at their depth chart, having guys like Khalil Shakir, Keon Coleman, Josh Palmer, Curtis Samuel, it feels like they're still looking for their guy. Now, Khalil Shakir obviously had a very good year last year. They used an early round pick on Keon Coleman, brought in Joshua Palmer in free agency. They're trying to find the guy, but it would not surprise me that if they went out and got a rookie wide receiver, he would have just as good of a shot as anybody to end up becoming Josh Allen's #1. So because of that, you love the offense, you love the quarterback. There isn't a ton of elite talent on the roster, obviously some good names, but at the end of the day, I think there is some opportunities here in Buffalo, so I think they should be in the elite category. Let's go to the Denver Broncos. The Denver Broncos, to me, are going to be in the great category. Having guys like Courtland Sutton on the roster, he is the bona fide #1 right now for Bo Nix, but outside of that, you're looking at a mix of players in Marvin Mims, Troy Franklin, and Devon Vele, and all of those guys I think could be players that end up getting replaced if a good enough wide receiver comes in the NFL draft. Now, obviously, they might be comfortable going out with that mix of 3 guys, but I think if they do bring in another guy early on in the NFL draft, they could have as good of a shot at the wide receiver 2 job for the Denver Broncos, and as Bo Nix long-term, maybe wide receiver 1 if Courtland Sutton doesn't get the contract extension that he wants. Now, let's go to the Cleveland Browns. I'm going to put the Cleveland Browns in the good category. This is a team that's going to be very high on Travis Hunter. He is the locked and loaded favorite right now to be the #2 pick in the NFL draft, and they've talked about wanting to use him as a wide receiver. Now, looking at the depth chart, there isn't a lot that you like. Jerry Jeudy, Cedric Tillman, a guy can come in and beat those guys in my opinion as far as depth chart goes, but I am a little bit worried about the quarterback situation here in Cleveland. Right now, it looks like Joe Flacco and Kenny Pickett are probably going to have a training camp battle to see who's QB1. Kenny Pickett says he didn't come here to be a backup or just to sit around and hang out. I'll believe it when I see it. At the end of the day, there is some question marks about the quarterback position. Deshaun Watson with the ruptured Achilles, again, not great. We'll see what happens. I think it's a good landing spot based off of the potential opportunities. Not going to be great because of lack of quarterback play. So let's go to the next team. The next team is going to be the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I'm putting them in the trash category, and that's going to be the first team here in that trash category for us, but that's because Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, and Jalen McMillan are all here. Those are the 3 established top 3 wide receivers on the depth chart, and I don't see that changing. Jalen McMillan looked good last year. Chris Godwin looked good. Mike Evans looked good. It's going to be those 3 until it's not. And at this point, it's probably going to be those three for a couple more seasons. So I don't think a rookie wide receiver is going to come in here and change anything. And I don't think that they're going to be in the market for a rookie wide receiver. Let's move on to the Arizona Cardinals. The Arizona Cardinals are going to be in that good category for me. It's Marvin Harrison Jr., obviously the top pick for them last year, a guy who didn't perform like we wanted him to for fantasy football purposes, but it's not like he had a bad rookie season. He had a pretty above average rookie season. At the end of the day, that's just not the expectations that were set on him, and so it felt like he was very disappointing. Outside of Marvin Harrison Jr. though, Michael Wilson, mediocre wide receiver, Zay Jones, a journeyman at this point here in the NFL. I think they could go find a wide receiver too to keep adding to this offense with Trey McBride and Marvin Harrison Jr., and hopefully keep getting some more weapons for Kyler Murray. So somebody could come in and definitely get some opportunities here in Arizona. Let's go to the Chargers. The Chargers to me are going to the great category. Ladd McConkey, Quentin Johnston, Mike Williams. That's the current depth chart. I think Ladd McConkey's established himself. QJ, he took some steps forward in year 2. Don't necessarily think he's still going to hit the ceiling that people thought he could hit when he was drafted in the first round. Mike Williams, a little bit washed at this point. Somebody can come in here and play wide receiver 2 along Ladd McConkey, and I think that they can definitely be a better or an upgrade to a guy like Quentin Johnston. I'm definitely looking at this as a landing spot where somebody can come in and be a difference maker year 1 for fantasy football teams alongside Ladd McConkey. So let's go on to our next team. Our next team is going to be the Kansas City Chiefs. I'm throwing them in the mid category. They're our first team in the mid category. Their depth chart right now is a little bit crowded. Rashee Rice, Xavier Worthy, Hollywood Brown, Juju Smith-Schuster. I think the bottom of the depth chart, you get a little bit weary of, are those guys actually even good at this point? I think Hollywood Brown probably better than he gets credit for at this point, but Worthy and Rice, those are their two guys going into it. What's going to happen with Rice going into next season? I don't know. Not going to pretend like I know either, but I know that for damn sure, nobody is going to be drafted to come in and be the wide receiver 1 or the wide receiver 2 over either of those guys at this point currently. So I think it's going to be in the mid category, even though you could maybe see that there is an upgrade at wide receiver 3 over Hollywood Brown. I just don't think that they're actually going to be looking for it. Let's go to the Indianapolis Colts. The Colts to me are going to be another trash landing spot. Crowded already. Michael Pittman Jr., Josh Downs, Adonai Mitchell, who I was a fan of last year in the draft class, and Alec Pierce, not to mention horrible quarterback play probably on the horizon from A-Rich, unless he takes a major step forward, or they're going to be turning the reins over to Daniel Jones, which isn't going to be much of an upgrade either. So not super excited about this landing spot. Too many mouths to feed, not enough good quarterback play to go around. Not really looking forward to this at all for a rookie wide receiver. Let's go to the Washington Commanders. The Commanders to me are going to fall in this mid category. They did go out and get Deebo Samuel this offseason to pair him alongside Terry McLaurin. Now their wide receiver 3 job, you could argue that they could go get an upgrade there because guys like Luke McCaffrey and Noah Brown are there. However, they just drafted Luke McCaffrey last year, so I don't necessarily feel like they're going to be going to look for a major upgrade at this point in time. Could they bring a guy in and he earns that wide receiver 3 job? Definitely, but I don't necessarily think that they're going to be going out to get a guy who's going to be guaranteed targets from day 1. Let's go to the next team. The next team to me is going to be the Dallas Cowboys. I'm putting them in the great category. Looking at this depth chart, it's CeeDee Lamb and Jalen Tolbert. Brandon Cooks leaves in free agency. Tolbert has kind of been a sleeper and then a post-hype sleeper and then maybe an underperformer for many of years. I think people have tried to get excited about Tolbert early on from his draft process. He just never really gave you that sleeper type of feel where it just panned out. So I think a lot of people have been holding on to some hope for Jalen Tolbert. At the end of the day, wide receiver 2, wide open, good offense with Dak Prescott and CeeDee Lamb, especially when they're humming and they're both healthy. I think there's definitely some good opportunity here for the Dallas Cowboys for a wide receiver to come in and play. Let's go to Miami. Miami is going to currently be sitting in the bad tier, and I say currently because there are rumblings of maybe Tyreek Hill moving on from the Dolphins, but as it sits today at the time of this recording, Tyreek Hill is a Miami Dolphin, so I'm going to view this as a bad landing spot. With Tyreek and Jalen Waddle currently on the roster, Malik Washington, who showed some flashes last year, and a free agent signing in Nick Westbrook-Ikhine. I don't necessarily think there's a lot of room for a rookie wide receiver to come in and perform, but if Tyreek Hill were to be traded or if he were gone, I do think this is one of the better landing spots because the departure of Tyreek Hill alone probably puts them in that good, maybe even the great tier for a wide receiver 2 to come in and play alongside Jalen Waddle. So we'll see what happens on draft day. Maybe Tyreek gets traded, maybe he gets traded before the draft, maybe he doesn't get traded at all. As it sits right now with him on the roster, this isn't a great landing spot for a rookie. Let's go to the Philadelphia Eagles. The Eagles are also going to be sitting here in the trash category. Obviously, they're loaded with talent. AJ Brown, Devontae Smith, 2 all-pro type of wide receivers. Not a lot of opportunities behind those 2 guys, and then even you have Jahan Dotson, who is the wide receiver 3 here, and I think he's a fine wide receiver 3 in this offense. Not really a lot of opportunities at all. Also, Saquon Barkley's just going to run the damn ball. That's the way it's going to be. The Philadelphia Eagles, trash landing spot for a rookie wide receiver. Let's go to the Atlanta Falcons. I'm going to say that they are bad at the moment. Now, they could maybe upgrade to mid mid. I think there's a debate between mid and bad. I'm going to keep him here at bad because Darnell Mooney did show out a little bit last year. I think he showed that he can be a capable number 2 wide receiver alongside Drake London. In the wide receiver 3 spot, you had Ray McLeod, who did have some flashes as well, but I think at this point in his career, we know who he is. Yes, there is an argument they could go to mid if they get the right guy, maybe a day 2 guy, but at the end of the day, I'm going to have them as bad because I do believe Drake London and Darnell Mooney are going to be the 2 wide receivers in this offense that they lean on, with Kyle Pitts and Bijan Robinson, with obviously Michael Penix Jr. at the helm at the quarterback position. But like I said, you could argue mid or bad. Either way, it's not going to be in the good categories at all for the Atlanta Falcons. Let's go to the New York Giants. I'm going to put them in the good category. When I look at their depth chart, it's Malik Neighbors and then some average players. I think Wan'Dale Robinson, fine in PPR. I think he's kind of one of the PPR scams in fantasy football. And Darius Slayton, who's been good, not great, somehow keeps getting paydays from the New York Giants. But at the end of the day, they could use a wide receiver too and somebody to complement Malik Neighbors. I think there's definitely opportunities to be had. And I think that they've upgraded their quarterback room with guys like Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston. They should be fine. This should be a decent spot for a rookie wide receiver. Let's go to the Jaguars. The Jaguars, I'm going to put them in the great category. And hear me out. Brian Thomas Jr. is the established wide receiver 1, but outside of him, yes, there's going to be names that some people like. I don't think anybody is established. You have Gabe Davis, Diami Brown that they brought over in free agency, and Parker Washington. Yes, some people like Parker Washington as a sleeper in the Dynasty community, but I think that there's room for a guy to come in and be the wide receiver 2 opposite Brian Thomas Jr., and I think that they would feast and definitely have the opportunity to outplay some of those names that we mentioned that are already on the roster. Let's talk about the New York Jets. The New York Jets, to me, I'm going to put in the average category. You got Garrett Wilson there, obviously is the number 1. Outside of him, I don't think that there's really anybody worth a damn. Malachi Corley, who I still kind of have a little bit of hope for, but I think that's just hopium at this point. Alan Lazard, Xavier Gibson, Josh Reynolds. Here's the issue. Yes, there is opportunity with Davante Adams no longer on the roster, but I don't believe that Justin Fields is the type of quarterback that can give you multiple elite wide receivers for fantasy. So the quarterback play is knocking this down despite the chance of there being more opportunities than some of the other teams maybe in the tier above them. I just don't believe Justin Fields is going to have multiple guys who are going to command multiple 100-yard target seasons. So yeah, I just don't believe in Justin Fields as the passing quarterback at this point. I think he's going to score a lot of fantasy points. Don't think he can support 2 weapons. So they are going to be average to me. Let's go to the Detroit Lions. The Detroit Lions, I'm going to put in the mid category. Right now, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jameson Williams, that's all they need. That's all they have needed. Obviously, they have a plethora of weapons on this offense. Tim Patrick and Khalif Raymond, they seem like the 2 guys that are kind of commanding that wide receiver 3 job. You have Raymond coming on some plays, Patrick on others. And with that said, there's a lot of mouths to feed on this offense. Not a lot going to be going around for a rookie wide receiver. Let's go to the Green Bay Packers. The Green Bay Packers, I'm going to put in the good category. Now, hear me out. Kind of like the Buffalo Bills, I do think this is a team that has a lot of good talent, but not a bona fide established wide receiver 1. Jaden Reed is my favorite of the bunch. You have other guys like Christian Watson, Romeo Dobbs, Dontavion Wicks. I think the package of players that they have is better than the group of package of players that the Bills have as a whole. But at the end of the day, I don't think that the quarterback play is as good. And I think because the grouping of players is a little bit better than what the Bills have to offer, you have to bump that down in landing spot. This is a landing spot where if I saw like an Emeka Egbuka, or maybe I saw somebody else get drafted here, I'd be definitely interested in them. But I think there's definitely a couple hurdles to try and get over. Still a good landing spot though. Don't let me talk down on it too much. It's still a good landing spot. Let's go to the Carolina Panthers. I also think that they are going to be a good landing spot as well. You have Leggett that they used a 1st-round pick on last year, Jalen Coker, who was a rookie last year, and Adam Thielen, who's a little bit older. This is still a team that's looking for someone to come establish themselves as the true wide receiver 1 in this offense. It could end up being Leggett, but I think that they're still looking for it. So this is a good landing spot for some potential opportunities in a Dave Canales offense, with Bryce Young taking a step forward a little bit in year 2. Let's go to the New England Patriots. The Patriots, I'm going to put as an elite landing spot, and hear me out, because the roster has a ton of names on it that some people have some excitement for in one way or another. But you have Stephon Diggs, the big signing in free agency. Outside of that, Demario Douglas, Jalen Polk, Kendrick Bourne, Javon Baker, Mac Hollins, Kayshon Boutte. I mean, you take your pick at them. The thing is, when I'm looking at that list of names, basically from Jalen Polk to Kayshon Boutte, that's like 5 wide receivers, and I don't know who's the wide receiver 3. All that tells me is that none of them are really good, and I can't really tell you who's going to be decent. So I think this is a team that could use a top top wide receiver in the draft. Ted McMillan here would be amazing in my opinion with Drake May. Even a guy like Travis Hunter, if somehow he falls to 4, I don't think he's going to, would be great here. Overall, elite landing spot. Pair him with Drake May for the future, and they could be the eventual #1 wide receiver alongside Stephon Diggs, as Stephon Diggs kind of gets into the twilight of his career. Let's go to the next team. I'm going to go to the Las Vegas Raiders. The Raiders, I'm going to put them in the great category. Right now, their depth chart is despicable. It's Jacoby Myers, who's been the good, not great option for the Raiders for a while, and then Trey Tucker. Nobody else here. Devontae Adams gone. All these other pieces that have been there for years, gone. Pete Carroll here is the head coach with Geno Smith at the quarterback. They're going to be looking for another weapon to pair with Brock Bowers, and they need another one in the wide receiver room. Maybe they go get Genty as well. We talked about that in the other video, but I think they need a wide receiver pretty bad on this offense. Let's go to the Rams. I'm going to be putting the Rams in the mid category, and that's because Puka Nacua and Devontae Adams should see the majority of the targets. Obviously, both of them under contract for the next couple of seasons. Jordan Whittington showed flashes. Tutu Atwell back in free agency. Not going to be a lot to go around for another rookie wide receiver, especially in a room with some target hogs like Puka and Devontae Adams, who are going to see a ton of targets from Matthew Stafford. Let's go to the Ravens. The Ravens, I'm going to be putting them in the mid category as well. Zay Flowers, the wide receiver 1 there. They bring DeAndre Hopkins in free agency. Rashad Bateman there. This is an offense that is a very good offense, but it seems like they have their guys already in this offense. I don't see them investing very high draft capital in a wide receiver, and I think they already got the guys that they're going to be planning on going into 2025 with right now in Hopkins, Flowers, and Bateman, so not going to be a lot of opportunity to go around here in 2025. Let's go to the Saints. The Saints, I'm throwing them in the average category. Right now, Chris Olave, Rashid Shaheed, and Brandon Cooks in free agency going back to the New Orleans Saints. Derek Carr at quarterback, but probably not really at quarterback because he's the quarterback under contract, but his arm is basically falling off at this point. We don't know what's going to happen at the quarterback position, and I think that makes it average to me. There's definitely some guys that you can beat out if you draft the right wide receiver. I think Shaheed is beatable, and I think Cooks is beatable as far as an opportunity share standpoint, but at the end of the day, too many question marks right now for me to feel super confident about them as a good, great, or elite fit, so they are going to sit here in the average tier. Let's go to the Seahawks. The Seahawks are also going to be in the average tier. Cooper Kupp and JSN, those are the locked and loaded wide receiver 1 and wide receiver 2 in this roster. MVS and Jake Bobo kind of wide receiver 3 after they've cut Tyler Lockett, so I do think that there's definitely room for somebody to come in and be the wide receiver 3 and maybe even the wide receiver 2 long term as Cooper Kupp ages, because he hasn't looked that great over the last couple of years. Let's be honest, he's dealt with the health and all of the other stuff. So JSN, Cooper Kupp for now as the 2, and maybe a rookie. I'm going to keep them average, but we'll see what happens here in Seattle, man. Let's go to the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Steelers, I'm going to put them as trash for now. DK Metcalf, George Pickens, those 2 guys are going to be their 2 wide receivers in this Arthur Smith offense. The quarterback right now is Mason Rudolph. Let's just talk about it, man, because Aaron Rodgers is taking his damn time. Maybe he ends up signing with them. Maybe he doesn't. I don't know why he wouldn't if he wants to continue playing. They've said they'll wait on him. We haven't seen him sign the contract. Aaron Rodgers, if he becomes the quarterback, you could maybe argue that this is a bad landing spot instead of a trash landing spot, but at the end of the day, there's not a lot to go around with Metcalf and Pickens, and then right now projected Mason Rudolph quarterback play. Not an ideal situation for a rookie wide receiver. That doesn't even account for the fact that they drafted Roman Wilson last year and they have Calvin Austin, who's been okay as their wide receiver 3. Let's go to the Houston Texans. The Houston Texans, I'm going to put them in the good category. I actually think this is one of my favorite landing spots for a guy like Emeka Egbuka, where you could come in and be the long-term wide receiver 2 in this offense opposite Nico Collins. Now, Tank Dell is obviously here. They went and they got Christian Kirk this offseason. I think Kirk profiles better as a number 3. Tank Dell, unfortunately, it feels like injuries are kind of just derailing the career at this point, so the number 2 job is wide open in my opinion. This is a very solid, very good landing spot for a potential rookie wide receiver, especially if they go get a guy like Egbuka in the first round and reunite him with CJ Stroud. Go to the Tennessee Titans. I also think this is a good landing spot as well. You have Calvin Ridley, Treylon Burks, Van Jefferson as the depth chart currently. Obviously, Burks and Jefferson don't get you excited at all. Even Calvin Ridley doesn't get you too excited these days. There is the chance that it's going to be Cam Ward. I think a better chance than not right now. If you look at the draft odds to potentially draft him as the number 1 pick in the draft, I think it's minus 20,000 at this point, so damn near a lock. So let's just say Cam Ward at the quarterback position, a rookie wide receiver coming in and playing that number 2 slot opposite Calvin Ridley, maybe eventually, depending on who you got in there, doing well enough to earn the number 1 job long-term as Cam Ward's number 1 wide receiver, which obviously is a pretty good situation for a rookie wide receiver. Now let's go to the last team, the Minnesota Vikings. We're going to put them bad. And look, Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, just like the Philadelphia Eagles, doesn't give you a lot to desire. However, the guy with the wide receiver 3 job here is Rondell Moore and Jalen Naylor. I think they're a little bit worse than Jahan Dotson Dotson, so maybe a little bit better than that Eagles. You could argue that this is a trash landing spot as well, because let's just be honest, outside of TJ Hawkinson, Justin Jefferson, and Jordan Addison, there's not going to be a lot to go around as far as receiving options go in this offense. So yeah, this is a bad / trash landing spot. I'm going to put them bad here for now, just because I think the wide receiver 3 job could potentially maybe use a small upgrade. All right, so there you have it. That is how I am viewing all of the NFL teams right now for potential landing spots for the rookie wide receivers in this 2025 rookie draft class. Obviously, still a little bit of time before the NFL draft hits, so some things can potentially change. Like I said, we're still waiting on Aaron Rodgers and some of these other things. There are some free agents in the market, but as of right now, that's how I'm viewing it. So hopefully that helps you guys out as far as trying to decipher how you feel about some of these rookies after the NFL draft when we see the landing spots. Obviously, the content's going to keep coming. Make sure you guys are subscribed to the channel. That way you don't miss any future videos. If you like today's video, you want to support the channel, make sure you hit the like button. It is the best free way to support this channel, and also commenting in the comment section helps us in the algorithm as well. So make sure you do that if you want to support the channel. Lastly, if you also want to keep supporting, go join the Discord. The Discord is free to join. I'm helping you guys in there with your Dynasty fantasy football teams 24/7, 365. There's a dope community of people in there. All of us want to talk fantasy football with you. So like I said, it's free to join. There is no risk in doing that. So if you haven't joined it, come join it over here at the League FFB. And with all of that being said, I have nothing else for you guys today. So I will see you in our next video. But until then, peace out.